Hi, thank you everyone for joining us. I am Amanda Conger, the Executive Director of the Cabinet Makers Association, and we have a few questions for you before we get started. So I'm going to launch the polls. Hopefully that's out there now. So if you can answer the questions, and that will help us customize our presentation today. I'm just waiting a few more minutes for people to answer the questions and get some last minute people who are joining the meeting.
And when I answered it, I put total in that area. So I got salespeople in there too. I didn't know what I was supposed to answer.
That's great. Yep, total employees. That's a good question. For those of you who are just joining us, we have some polls on the screen for you to answer so we can customize our presentation today. Just take a few minutes to answer those. And then we will get started momentarily. Okay, just I'll give you a few more minutes to answer those questions on the screen, so we can tailor the presentation accordingly. We're getting most of your responses are in, so that's good. I just wanted to give a brief introduction. This webinar about production scheduling came as a result of a post in our forums, in our Collaborate forums, where the question was asked, how are you handling this? And it's a great question. And so we have Kevin Martin here from Cineapps, who's going to present more about the topic. And he does need to know how many employees you have and some of the other questions that we're asking, because that really does make a difference in how he presents the presentation. So Kevin, let me see if I can, are the results sharing on screen? Can you see them?
No, unfortunately, I can't.
Okay, so let me give people a few more minutes to respond because they are still responding, and then when I end it.
Hi, Amanda. This is Travis from Forever Cabinets. I don't see anything in the chat. Where are these questions listed?
They should just pop up on your screen. They're polls or quizzes.
We're from the same company. Would that make a difference?
Yes.
So if
No, it shouldn't. Everyone should be able to see it.
Okay. All right.
Let's see.
Well, Amanda,
But yeah, you don't have to answer. If Morgan already answered, you're good.
It's not too bad. I'm gonna ask I can ask those questions. I'll have to re-ask those questions a little bit, but I think it's more to have a feel about what you guys do. Great. All right, I see the results. Great news.
Yes.
All right, I see a lot of people using Google Calendar. A little bit of people using whiteboards. That's great. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for answering the poll. All right. Amanda, do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead. And I just wanted to say one more thing. If you have questions throughout, you can raise your hand or use the chat function. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So go ahead, Kevin. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, first, hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar about the schedule for cabinet makers. So I'm going to first start with today's objective. The objective is really to conceptualize scheduling in cabinet shops. The reason why I say conceptualize is because we're going to target the main concepts about the schedule, because we have some people in different sizes. We have people that do different things. And every schedule will have a little bit of variants on how to do them and how to address different types of challenges, all right? So just so to present ourselves, so who we are at Cineapps, we're a company that was founded in 2009. It was founded by Frederick Paré, who was a sales rep at the time for Microvellum. And he was regularly asked, well, can you do scheduling? Can you do procurement? Can you do X, Y, Z? And he was tired of saying no. So he decided to start his own company, his own solution, built for cabinet and woodworkers. And it was built by experts from the industry. From there, we really developed and tailored our solution to make ultra efficient woodworking shops. To give you a little bit more insight on who I am now. So my name is Kevin Martin. I always had a love for woodworking. I built my first furniture at the age of 12, then did my bachelor degree in management, and then started working at a furniture company. Probably you guys know it, Folio Furniture, as an account manager. Then went on to be a project manager for high-rise construction. And now I am a solution expert at Cineapps for now more than 3 years. So scheduling in cabinet shops, probably most of you already understood it if you're here today. It's a challenge. You have to take into account a lot of external, internal factors. Things are moving, things are changing. There is uncertainty, there is sometimes instability, and that's what makes it an art to actually maintain one. So this is one of the biggest challenge. It's not the schedule itself, it's maintaining, right? So that is one of the biggest challenges that we all have. So most of you already answered to that question, but if you haven't, you can now just answer it in the chat. So what is the size? How many employees do you have in your business? Because this does apply a little bit of a change on what are going to be your different workflows or critical paths that we will discuss a little bit further on. But the first question, the second question actually, that I'm going to ask you guys is, why do we want to schedule? So I'm asking that question, which sounds a little bit stupid, right? Well, I want to schedule to actually make sure that I'm going to hit my delivery dates. I want to schedule because I want my customers to be happy. I want to schedule just to make sure that everybody works, right? Those are answers that we will think of, right? It's the main thing that we're going to think, but it's more crucial than that. There's a larger impact to the schedule in a cabinet shop, because we do sometimes custom, we do sometimes one-offs, we do sometimes really tailored things, or we do sometimes regular things, the same boxes every day, right? So we have some standards, we have some customs, we have a lot of different things. So there is a bigger impact to the schedule. Second question, just to give a little bit of a breather here. So systems that you guys are using, I already saw that most of you already answered those. If you want, you can also add those in the chat. But now I'm going to ask another very good question. What is the goal of your cabinet shop? Because this also ties in, right? So the goal should be something like, well, we want to make money, right? Something like that. If you ask a company, not a company, but if you ask a hockey team, well, it's going to be to win the Stanley Cup, right? But now, is it a common goal? So to win a Stanley Cup, the hockey team will have all to work together. The goalie will stop as many goals as possible, right? As many pucks as possible. The offense will want to make one more goal than the other team. This is the whole thing here, right? So if your team has the same objective, well, this means that you can all advance to the same goal, right? So for instance, if your guy that is doing assembly, in his mind, he just has to do the next cabinet, then it's totally different than if he knows the priority. That will impact how you can maintain your schedule. So today, the main concepts that we're going to go through are going to be throughput, bottleneck, capacity, and workflow and critical paths. All right. So the first one, throughput. So do anybody of you guys know already the concept? If you do, just simply raise your hand in the chat or in the screen. So if you don't, well, the throughput is really the rate at which your system does generate profit. Again, tying in to the rest, right? So your system cost needs to create more value than what it actually eats. So how do we measure the cost of a system? To understand how we measure the cost of a system, I will go directly to the concept of the bottleneck, which is generally a concept that is more known, but I'm just still going to explain it with this example. I'm sure all of you have washed your car in your driveway. While going around the car, the hose just gets yanked around a tire, and then you lose all of the pressure, right? So this is exactly what a bottleneck is. You've created constraint at one point, and now you cannot get the same output at what comes in. So this is the bottleneck. For a hose, it's pretty simple. Unfortunately, for a cabinet shop, it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? So if we say that we cannot go faster than the slowest runner when you have a bottleneck, that means that the whole weight of the cost of the system is directly on that bottleneck. So I'm going to ask you guys to do a little bit of maths. Okay, keep it to yourselves, but just think about it, all right? So we're going to want to calculate the cost of the system on that bottleneck. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the annual revenue and we're going to subtract the materials. Generally, materials is about 30% in average of your different projects. Of course, this will vary depending on your procurement specialist, how many great deals was he able to make. So there's going to be a little bit of variance on here. You're going to divide that by the number of hours that your shop is open in a year, all right? So in this example here, I took an annual revenue of 3 million. I removed 30%, and then I divided by 2,000 hours, which represents 50 weeks at 40 hours of running time for the whole shop. That will give you the cost of your system for 1 hour. So in this example, my bottleneck costs me $1,050 an hour. What this means is if your bottleneck is idle, because there's a variable that is very important in this calculation here, and it's time. You will never be able to regain that time unless you open more hours, right? So if your bottleneck is idle or you don't prioritize appropriately what you put in your bottleneck, then you're going to directly impact the profit of the company. The third concept that we're going to be looking at right now is capacity. So you're going to say, what's the difference between the bottleneck, the capacity? It's not the same thing. Well, unfortunately, no, it's different concepts. So the concept of capacity is actually what you will want to put into that bottleneck and how much value it will bring in. So you have maybe the capacity in your shop to manage a certain amount of X type of project versus Y projects. What do I mean by that is, for instance, I have a project that has finishing. Well, my project that has finishing might not have the same impact to my schedule, to my bottleneck, as one that is in Milliman. The one in Milliman, you have edge banding to do, you don't have any finishing. Unfortunately, finishing usually takes time to dry and takes a lot of space to dry as well, right? So let's say we are doing a project with finishing. I'm going through my shop, I use my saws, I use my CNCs, edge banding, I do my doweling and so forth, right? And then I do my finishing of my doors and finished end on one side. Then I have some downtime, maybe another part, right? Or I have some availability for something else to go through. So I could actually manage, according to my sales team, what I can sell to make sure that my shop runs at full capacity. And that will also impact our profit and our throughput. So knowing what we schedule then ties in with all of the previous concepts. If I know that when I have an element project, I first do my drawing, and now I'm putting the accent on drawing here, because I then do my optimization, then I do my procurement, then I do my cutting, then I do maybe my doweling, I do sanding, I do assembly, I do QC, I wrap, and then I ship, right? So those are all very important steps. And all of those steps have an impact on the next one. So knowing what you will schedule will then help you to do the next steps, will help you to maintain it, but will also help you to understand where you need to prioritize. So, as I was mentioning, projects will go through different flows. If I make a slab door project, I will make my doors. It will take less time than if I'm actually doing MDF doors and I have finishing to do. It will take less time because if I do a thermofoil door that I need to purchase, and then I need to wait 6 weeks to receive them, right? So then we have the procurement part that is also very, very important. I need to have my materials on time to do my next steps. So mapping out your different projects should be one of the key components of creating your schedule. So now the impact and how to improve, right? So the first thing is, well, if my bottleneck is empty, it costs the entire system. So this also means that I'm better to put something in my bottleneck I still have a loss than not putting anything in it. The bottleneck, in theory, should always be full with projects that have a bigger value than the cost of the bottleneck. Now, you will also have to prioritize the different projects that will create more value. So I've already, I've heard, so, I visited many shops over the course of the years, seen many different things go through, right? And one time I visited a shop where the guy just told me, hey, look, I'm so happy. I'm actually doing a $200,000 project this month. All the team is scrambling through it, but I think we're going to be able to make it. I said, that's great. That's great news. Do you know how much you're going to actually profit in that project? And then he said, well, I don't know, but the shop is running. Well, the shop is running. That's good. That's good. At least the shop is running. But then I asked the question that he couldn't answer was, if you would have done 20 projects of $10,000 each in that same amount of time, which one would have created more profit? And then the answer is a little bit harder to have, right? So it's about prioritizing the project that will bring the most value. And that will also help to the first thing that we said about the goal. What is the goal of the whole team? If we have to change the schedule for a project that has less value than another one, then it's not a good move. If we're changing the schedule for a project that has a higher value, then it's necessary. So how do we improve on those, right? So first we have to identify the different factors that impact the schedule. We then need to find a way to minimize them wherever possible to keep everything running as efficiently as possible. So today we're going to look at those 3 different factors. Okay, I know already what you're going to be saying is, well, I could get you a list that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I could still find new ones, right? So we all went through different factors that impacted my schedule, but you have some common ones that you can have more power on. So material availability, that is one that will impact your schedule. Project changes from the customers, production delays, and by production delays, I mean mostly internal ones. So managing inventory and material availability. This is one thing that I've seen in a lot of cases that was minimized. But it's one of the part where you have the most cost. The reason why is if you don't get your material on time for production, well, what will happen is simply you're going to have to take your schedule and put it in the garbage. Because then you have to move everything around. You then become a firefighter. You put your firefighter hat on, and then your day goes down the hole, right? So what you want to do is make sure that you have the right materials at the right time. But how can we make that? So first thing is we're going to set minimums and maximums for the products that we do use on a regular basis. So for instance, I want to always have 2 boxes of hinges. That might be one of the things, right? I want to have at least a bundle of white melamine because I use it more often. It's another thing that's important. You might also want to put 0 minimum quantity to an odd color that you used only once in your life. Another thing that you'll want to do is implement just-in-time purchasing. Because the other thing is, well, I know that I need to have all of this material, but you have limited space. You have limited cash flow. You cannot say I'm just going to buy everything, right? If we could, nobody would still be here today. We would just buy everything and would be all full of money. That's not the way the world works. What we need to do is purchase as close as possible to our production need and make sure we have it on time, of course. So then from there, we can leverage either smart system, or we can also do that thinking on ourselves. So let's say I partner up with the work group, right? So I know that my work group, they're gonna be delivering me consistently. Then I'm better off working with someone that delivers me consistently than working with someone that gives me $2 off on different materials. Because then you won't impact the cost of your whole system as it goes through. So you're a lot better actually than not go on that price war. You're better to look for partnership with your suppliers. The next thing is centralizing information and managing customer changes. So when we get the famous call in the morning from the GC telling you, hey, look, Kevin, fortunately, I have to push you off a month. When you get that call, how many departments do you have to communicate with, right? So you'll have to communicate with procurement, of course. I hope he didn't buy everything yet, or else I'm going to be stuck with it in my legs. I'll have to communicate with the production coordinator because, oh, I need to push out the date. I'll need to communicate with the installation department, with my subcontractors, with my expedition team, with my invoicing and accounting. All of those people will be impacted. And if they don't take into account what you've just said with them as fast as possible, then you're going to create more problem, right? So it's all about creating that traceability. It's about creating something that all works together. So in the best of worlds, you will have all of the information in one place. And that's why I asked the question at the beginning, who's using Google Shared Agenda? That is one of the good things that we can start doing. ERP, of course, if everything is centralized in one place, even better. Using a whiteboard, you still have that flaw that you have to work on and try to scramble when things move around and then make sure that everybody saw it. So that's the other part. Everybody needs to take action. So the solution is really about centralizing the information to make sure that when I move something, it's moved for everyone. You also need to know that when somebody moved something, why did they move it and who moved it? So the reason behind it is very important as well, because you want to trace it and you want to react on it on future deals, right? On future projects. And now the last thing, but not the least, right? It's scheduling backwards from delivery. Here I wrote delivery, but it can be the installation date. It can be also the due production date, right? So can be any of those dates, but it's the main thing here is really scheduling backwards from the delivery to then wrapping to then QC and going up like that. Doing so, you make sure that you're going to be producing it as close to the date as possible, which will help alleviate the problems that when you get that call, you already started production. And if you already started production, then you're a little bit in the wrong spot because let's say we go back to COVID, right? When we were in the COVID area, and still that happens a little bit today when the funding falls through for a big project, but a little bit less today. But you could know that, well, the project was moved up a month, but it could then be moved off another month and another month and another month. And then if you already had some production done, well, those cabinets would just stay there, sitting there on your floor, just accumulating dust. That's not good for anyone because it hurts your cash flow. And most likely, fortunately, you're in a cabinet shop, there will be breakage. You will lose parts. So this is something that can really impact the profit and the costing, right? So you want to reduce that as much as possible by producing as close to the delivery date as possible without missing it, always. Now we're talking about production delays. So planning for the future. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Prioritizing high value projects will always help you make sure that you make more profit. Minimizing other projects, important. You want to do that as less as possible. You still want to be able to hit all of those dates. So that's why when you manage with capacity, you manage with bottlenecks, you're able to have a broader view of what's actually happening to make sure that you allocate the right resources to every steps. And of course, when you get a call from one of your shop guys, that might be the only one able to operate a CNC, let's say, and he tells you, hey, look, I'm sick this morning, I can't come in. How do you manage that? Because that's always going to be last minute, right? So you have to make sure that you have the right prioritization to actually stay on track, keep track, have other resources that you can reallocate to move around to follow that path. So this will help you stay on track. Also, you'll have machinery breakage. So the only tip I can give you is actually doing the fine tuning as requested from the merchant, right? So if you need to do it every 3 months or every X linear feet, let's say, well, make sure you don't miss that date. And now the importance of communication. So in a cabinet shop, communication is key, not only with people internally, but also with people externally. So your people, your customers, your suppliers. Talked already about it with your suppliers, making sure that you partner with the right people. But it's also going to be about making sure that you partner with your customers. So if the customers understand that, well, if I move out your date, there's going to be X cost. Maybe this is something that you want to do. Maybe this is something that you don't want to do. But what we want to make sure is that everybody is aware of the challenges and is aware of the goal. So that way you can actually try to maintain that schedule that you've had so many times building so that it actually reflects reality. So an impacts of poor scheduling or poor communication, sorry. Probably you've all went through this. I personally went through this. Overstocking, making production happen too early, having late material arrivals, having delayed deliveries, having higher costs, and of course, potential damage to the reputation of your company. So, in conclusion here, what are the main points that I want to mention? Is that we need to have a clear communication with internal teams and external partners to make sure that everybody is aligned with the targets, with the goals, right? Having a centralized information to maintain what you schedule is also crucial. So that way you can actually move something and everything moves as well. You want to be able to have inventory management. So that way you know what you need to purchase at what time you need to purchase it. So you are never affected by late materials again. Being aware of the time. So this is another very important part. When you're doing the workflow, you need to know how much time everything will take, every step should take. So for instance here, let's say I'm going to go with the easiest example. I have to cut 50 sheets of MDF or of melamine on my CNC. My CNC, on the label, it says you cut 60 sheets a day in 8 hours. You then know how much time it's going to pass at the CNC step. Then need to know how many linear feet of edge banding will happen at the edge band. You then need to know how much time it will take at doweling. Every step of the way. And now a little trick that I can give you guys on that part. Calculate it on the materials. Let's say we want to know, well, sheets of melamine that goes at the bandsaw that goes at the edge bending. So if I have 50 sheets, again, I'll know how much time it's going to take. If I go with edge bending, gonna go with the linear feet of edge bending. If I go at assembly, then you can maybe go with hinges, doors, can go with panels. You can have a recipe there because of course assembly is a little bit more complicated. And since there's the human factor involved, in most cases, I've seen some people being able to automate a little bit of the assembly, but most cases no. In that case, it's going to be about making a little bit of calculation here of different items. So that way you're going to be able to have a time for all of those steps. And of course, it's going to be about tracking those time to refine it afterwards. You'll then have project prioritization. So to make sure that you always identify the one that have the most value, and then look at those projects and make sure that those types of projects are going to be the one that are going to be prioritized in the future. Here we have written a small blue book that talks a little bit about ultra efficient woodworking shops. It's free to download. You can have a look to it, download it, read it. Not that many pages, about 15 pages, pretty easy to go through. I'll then want to do a little bit of my sales pitch because, of course, we're a solution company. We talk about this from a day-to-day time. With the Cineapps software, we schedule by work order. All of the topics that I've just discussed with you guys are things that we do on a regular basis with our different solution, right? So the whole goal here is really to help alleviate the problems and the challenges of woodworking shops. And just so you guys know, smallest shops that we work with, 3-man operation. Largest that we work with, 150-man operation. Of course, you'll have different dollars of revenue per year for those different companies, because I've also seen some companies being able to automate everything in the back with 3 people, right? And now they're all electromechanics. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? Another part that I've mentioned that is very important is to be able to move a date, and every department knows and is aware, so everything moves together automatically. I push out a date, procurement knows, scheduling knows, the installation knows, the production knows, expedition knows, everybody knows, everybody's aware of it, and don't even have to take action on it because the system does it for themselves. Purchasing on time. So we work a lot to connect you guys with your suppliers. So that way, when they answer to your orders, it actually goes through our system and updates the system for you. So having that all linked in helps you do really what adds value to your projects, to your time, right? So, of course, production made on time, knowing what you schedule, having your workflows created, making sure that your schedule is reliable, and knowing how much time all of those steps should take so that people, when they're in the back, they know how much time they should take for every step. The workflows are all tied together and showed in a Gantt chart, a little bit like what we see up here. Right? Having a task view as well, having a separate calendar of scheduling for your deliveries and installation, and having another separate one for planning and capacity. So the capacity one, just so everybody, I hope everybody just got that, but it's about showing it to the sales team. Capacity is for the sales. They need to know what they need to sell next to promise the right date. This is what it's important for. Track your progress in real time. We want to know what's happening, who is working on what, how much time they're passing, making sure we hit those dates, and if we're not, taking the corrective actions as soon as possible. And of course, compare what we scheduled versus reality and have your cost of revenue. I want to know, well, I expect having that cost of revenue. Why am I off? Why am I on target? This is something that you need to have and take the right KPIs. So if you want to take a deeper dive, of course, you can book a meeting with me to be one-on-one so we can look specifically for your business, how we can try and implement those course of actions. If you need help on how we can try to find a solution to those different topics, it's going to be my pleasure to help you guys with the best of my knowledge. We are now at the question section. I hope I didn't take too much time on here. If you have any questions, do raise your hand. You can also write them directly into the chat. It's going to be my pleasure to help you and answer to those questions.
Thank you, Kevin. That was very informative. Anyone have any questions? Hopefully you got out of this what you wanted. But please answer questions or ask questions. You'll
I
have,
guess
go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. I like what you said about the bottleneck and capacity. Can you clarify a little bit about, in talking about bottlenecks and capacity, we have like task-specific bottlenecks, which would be finishing or whatever the task in a cabinet is. And generally in finishing, it's actually dry time, if I'm not mistaken, because it takes 3 hours for a coating to dry, but 5 minutes to put on the panel and 5 minutes to sand it. But in other areas, we have capacity bottlenecks through personnel. If we have one person who does milling sheet goods, milling hardwood, assembling cabinets, and all this other stuff, whereas that person might only have 8 hours a day or whatever his capacity is, and the stuff on a project that he needs to do is greater than his capacity in a day. How do you handle a floating bottleneck, so to speak, where it changes between a person on a project, and even though that he's not the finished drying, which is the true bottleneck, but he's a capacity bottleneck. What's the true bottleneck in the system then?
so. To this question, you'll have, like I said, so you'll have different bottlenecks for different types of projects. So you were mentioning drying time. Drying time, you still use space around it. And if you try to do more finishing, what's going to happen is you're just going to have no space left. So in this sense, the bottleneck is directly linked to your drying time for the finishing station. When we want to work with the floating bottlenecks, right? So this is where we need to apply a rhythm. So the analogy I usually like to put on there is to say, well, your shop is a little bit like a melody. You'll have floating bottlenecks according to the knowledge of your different users. And this is usually a sign that you need to train more people on doing the same tasks, because then you will always be dependent of the person, of that specific person. So you need to know, well, how many people can actually do that specific job, right? So if I have at least 2 people that can do that job, I am less impacted by a change. So if he is calling in sick for XY reason, he's taking a vacation for a whole week, which does happen, right? Everybody wants to have vacations. You need to have someone that can do that job while not impacting the rest of what's happening. So you need to know, when you compare the time of all of those different tasks, you will see on a broad view, all of those stations, the time that goes in, everything that's going to be all lining up together at one point, and you'll see right away visually, well, here I have more time on that station. Why do I have more time on that specific station? So now you understand that this person might have a little bit more time available. Or you'll also understand the other way around. Well, I don't have any much time. I am backed up more than I anticipated for this. So I have less capacity than I actually thought. I hope this answer to your question, Lily. Next one we had would explain how a schedule change would automatically be solved with your system. So first thing, you're going to plan your workflows according to your different types of project. Now, the system will automatically calculate according to the number of materials that you've put into your different calculation, what time will go to each of those steps. What this means is when you're going to move the time, the system will look at what you have also scheduled, and it will ask you, do you want to reschedule? By doing so, it will move the project out, going from the back date, the delivery date, installation date, or the due production date, and move backwards, putting in all of the other steps. If you get in conflict with another one, the system will tell you, and you'll have to move things around a little bit to make sure that everything still works together. Now, it will also be linked with your inventory. So procurement will be delayed. Installation will be automatically delayed as well. So the tasks will all move. And people won't necessarily need to take action right away because everything will have moved all together. Morgan, I hope this answered your question. I guess it did. Does your software move job components around automatically when new information is available, or is it a manual reconfiguration? So job, I answered a little bit that question with Morgan's one. So when we move things around, if it jumps over something else, you'll have to take the decision of which one do I prioritize, right? So you want to make sure that the job that you're going to be moving out, when you're going to be moving it out, you're not going to be overstepping a more valuable job for you that didn't ask to be moved, right? So this is something that is very important. When that will move together, you look at it and then you say, all right, it has moved out. I'm in conflict. Now I will just move it out maybe a little bit further, a little bit sooner, just to make sure that you don't go over capacity while still making sure that you hit those delivery dates as possible and as consistently as possible. James, I hope that answered your question. I'm gonna have to guess it's a yes. Perfect. Does anybody else have any questions? If we don't have any other questions, well, thank you everyone for attending today. I do hope you viewed and you went here and saw what you wanted to see. Of course, again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to communicate with us. We will share this presentation for everyone. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. That was my question.